Good to see you, Bill. Yeah.
Awesome intro, Rui. Thank you so much. Yes, really exciting who we have here today. I just want to set the stage. So, we've been doing green building and green certification for quite some time, and one of the foundations of that is making sure that the products in the building are actually green. Historically, that's what we looked at. We've said, let's make sure they're green. Thankfully, over time, we've begun saying, let's expand that scope to actually say, what's sustainable? Is that product sustainable? So in the past, for design as built in our previous iterations of Green Star, we've said, what's the green product? And that's usually positive, what we call positive now. But thankfully, we're evolving that to actually look at what is your supply chain? What's beyond just it being green and good for the planet, but how is it good for the people and the places that it's actually being made, the product being made, and actually being installed for people. So thankfully, that's evolving. I've just recently reread Cradle to Cradle by William McDonough and Michael Brungart, and I know it's a really inspiring book. It's a bit depressing. It was written back in 2002, and we haven't quite gotten all the way there, but still, it's an inspiring book to read. But William McDonough does talk about the word sustainable, and it's not really the best word. It's not a word you say, is your marriage sustainable? But anyways, it's the word we have, and it's a word that embraces the fact that we're looking at social, economic, and environmental aspects of things to make sure we're not just doing laser focus looking at green. It's great to be talking about embodied carbon. We know we've got a climate emergency. We need to be worrying about this. It's important, but there are other things to think about also for our buildings and the products we're putting in our buildings. So thankfully, GBCA has created what's called the Responsible Products Framework, and that framework is doing what I'm just talking about. It's expanding the scope of what is a responsible product for buildings. And that's looking at responsible, healthy, positive, circular, and leadership. So it's kind of an amazing calculus that's being put together to create what is a good, responsible product. So we're really excited. As you know, we released Green Star Buildings NZ last night. That's embracing the Responsible Products Framework. In the past, a green product was given some points in Green Star. Under the new iteration of Green Star, you're given many more points for having a responsible product. So I think it's something architects and designers need to be thinking about early on and be looking at these products and trying to ensure that they're being incorporated into the building. So we're really excited for this and where this is going to go. And I think it's really exciting that we got Environmental Choice Aotearoa and Laura involved about a year and a half ago, speaking with GBCA and seeing what was happening, and she'll be talking about that a bit more when she's up here. And also, we really are blessed to have Aidan from Interface. I've been interested in sustainability since the late 90s, and Interface has been doing this, and it's just become BAU for them. And they are really, like you said, they are the original gangster. They really have been doing this for quite some time. It's really inspiring, and I really look forward to hearing what Aidan has to say about their journey and what they're continuing to look to for the future. So I'd like to introduce Laura, the CEO of Environmental Choice Aotearoa. Laura Gemmell is the CEO of Government Ecolabel EcoChoice Aotearoa. EcoChoice certifies products and materials that adhere to strict environmental standards, are safe and fit for purpose. Laura's background is in journalism, communications, and international development. She has had significant experience working in emergency contexts throughout Africa and the Middle East. I did not know that. I'd have to talk to you about that later. Driving award-winning global public engagement campaigns and inspiring meaningful action. Having time and time again seen climate issues undermine work to end poverty and exacerbate conflicts, she is committed to driving awareness and action around the intersection of environmental sustainability and social justice. So please do come up. Thank you, Laura. And then we have Aidan Mullan, who's a sustainability manager for Interface. And Interface is our sustainability sponsor, which we do appreciate. Aidan specializes in the interaction of Interface's Climate Take Back initiative to run its business in a way that reverses the effects of global warming. He uses LCA tools to evaluate raw materials and manufacturing environmental impacts to assist the company in transitioning to more sustainable processes and products, helping to achieve its goal to become carbon negative by 2040, so I look forward to hearing more about that. A chemical engineer by profession, Aidan has led innovations to reduce waste, embodied carbon, and the continuous development of the company's circular economy program, Reentry. Joining the company in 2010, a key part of his role is sharing the lessons learned on the way to achieving the company's climate take-back goals. He does this through workshops and lectures and is currently delivering AIA-accredited CPD training for architects and designers across Australia. Aidan, lovely to have you. So thank you so much for being here. It is truly a pleasure and honor to have you up here. So as mentioned, Laura, do you mind kind of diving in a little bit about your history with ECA and also your experience with GBCA and the Responsible Products Framework and maybe how it might have navigated or helped you navigate where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. So Eco-Choice Aotearoa, some of you might be more familiar with our previous name, Environmental Choice New Zealand, or ECNZ. So we rebranded earlier this year. And we are the Ministry for the Environment's eco-label. As Brad said, we certify products and services, and we take a life cycle approach to that, so looking at the raw material extraction right through to the manufacturing to end of life. So we started, as you said, speaking to GBCA probably about 18 months to 2 years ago, and I was pretty fresh in the role at the time, so it was a pretty steep learning curve. I guess my background is very much around, the social side of sustainability. So at Eco-Choice, we really take a holistic view of sustainability. And, we also do on-site audits. So one of the things when I first started was, informally we were sort of checking for human rights, modern slavery, those sorts of things. And I was really keen to formalise that. But it was a little bit of a hard sell when I first started. There was a suggestion that we should stick to our knitting with that environmental focus. And I have to thank the Green Building Council, because by you guys sort of moving, it really helped me get it across the line with the board. So thank you for that. We started just sort of talking about some of the changes that the Green Building Council was wanting to make. We provided some feedback on that. And as a result, we've started phasing a modern slavery and social accountability criteria. We've really ramped up our criteria around embodied carbon as well. And the other part, I guess, which has been a real focus for us, is around the leadership criteria. So what are manufacturers and suppliers doing that are above and beyond? What are they doing to protect and regenerate nature if their business is having an impact on that? And those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Exciting. Yeah, no, it's been really great working with you, and it's really amazing seeing how it's evolved and all the great stuff you're doing, and that you already got some things certified over at GBCA. So Aidan, way back in the 90s, Interface made what they called a mid-course correction. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I suppose, it's actually 30 years this year. Our founder and CEO, Ray Anderson, had his spear in the chest epiphany and realized, the damage he was doing to the environment. A couple of things that occurred to him. One, we were polluting our environment. We were seeing the extinction of species. And we were living beyond our means, taking what we couldn't put back. So really, he had to change what he was doing. The company was quite mature at that stage, 21 years, I think. And he had to move from the take, make, waste model to something more cyclical. And the whole idea was that we would actually take products already existing and recycle those back into the manufacturing chain and use renewable energy to create new products. So basically what Ray was talking about there was, tackling climate change and developing a circular economy model. And that's effectively what we did. And it was so reassuring to hear a lot of the comments this morning kicking off with the place to start was measuring. Where were we? Where did we start from? And also, where were we trying to go to? And I think the important thing that Ray Anderson did was he set basically a moonshot goal, something that seemed impossible, to have zero impact by 2020, and then to set a roadmap in place. But measurement was key, and we developed our ecometrics, as we called it in-house back then, measuring everything from our recycled content, the water use, renewable energy use, again, developing then LCAs in the early 2000s, moving forward there, and starting to actually work on what our carbon impacts were as well. And in using those measurements, then we were able to focus on where the big areas were that we needed to actually put attention on to reduce those impacts. And I think we've done a pretty good job so far. We've reduced actually the carbon footprint of our products by over 82%. And indeed, cutting that link to the petrochemicals, because again, if you're familiar with the fluorine products that we manufacture, they're derived from petrochemicals. You get your polyesters, your PVCs, your polyethylenes and polyurethanes and what have you. And we really needed to cut that link, not only to the petrochemicals, but also to the fossil fuels that we use to drive our manufacturing. That's where we're at today. So basically all our factories now run on 100% renewable electricity. And indeed, I'm currently working on converting our factory in Minto in New South Wales to go electric, to remove gas as a process heating source. And we intend to do that over the next few years. So again, decarbonising our manufacturing processes will be really key.
And I think we talked earlier, that was fantastic, is you've been on really kind of bleeding edge for so long, but you've actually been willing to share it with industry, correct? Or what you've learned, and basically sharing and being very open with your experience.
I think that's very, very important, because initially, you know, when you kick off on a journey like this, you're sort of plowing your own furrow, but then you realize that you cannot do any of this on your own. And I think very much so when it comes to reducing embodied carbon, you know, it's about materials. Less is more. Recycled content, look for low carbon alternatives. Circular economy, a different ball game, and that's probably the biggest challenge. And that really requires a lot of collaboration throughout the supply chain. And in building and construction, we have a very dysfunctional supply chain, because really, you know, the pressure is on margins, and really it's a race to the bottom, you know, to get the lowest cost, and cost overrules then quality. So I think it's very, very important that when we actually try to address circular economy going forward, it is a real collaborative approach.
Yeah, that's what we see, I think, everywhere in this sustainable realm, which is really fantastic. Yeah. People are willing to share their experiences and lessons learned to their peers and their competitors even. Yeah. What would you both have to say to someone who's like a brand new manufacturer, such as Circular, who is doing really amazing stuff, but they don't know where to start in this realm of eco-labels, EPDs, it's all these acronyms, and they don't really know what they even mean. Laura, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think, obviously the Green Building Council is a fantastic resource, so give them a call. We're also very happy to help. Look, it's such a confusing minefield, and I think people have a lot of trouble figuring out what it is what they need and what they don't need. So I guess, you know, from my perspective, I guess the three big ones in this space are LCAs, EPDs, and eco-labels. So the LCA, in my view, is a great starting point to sort of understand, get that business intelligence about where the hotspots are in your supply chain and what you can potentially do about those, and, you know, figure out what your options are. Eco-labels, obviously I'm quite biased, but they offer an unmatched level of assurance. So obviously, you know, we're looking at the environmental impacts. We're also looking at things from a human health perspective as well. You know, is this, you know, product full of carcinogens, those sorts of things, and does it do what it's supposed to do? Is it fit for purpose? And then your EPDs really offer you a transparent way of comparing products side by side. So look, I think, you know, we know that there is confusion, and we're trying to figure out how we can be more helpful. So in terms of partnerships, we've just partnered with Edge Impact to sort of offer all three of those options and kind of work with suppliers to figure out what it is they actually need at that stage in their journey. And I guess part of the value with that as well, because, you know, these things take time, they cost a lot, is working out how, you know, for instance, if you've got the eco-label, you've done a lot of hard yards already. You've got a lot of data sitting there. What can be brought across to help populate your EPD? So you're cutting down the time and the money you're spending. So it's tough. I would take your time, talk to people, do your research. Also on the EcoChoice website, if you have a product that falls into our sort of, you know, the categories that we have, everything is open source. So you can jump on there and look at a technical document in terms of our requirements, regardless of whether you decide to get the eco-label, and it's a blueprint for better business.
Yeah, I think it's the frustrations on both sides from a supplier point of view and a specifier's point of view when it comes to eco-labels, and, you know, an EPD is actually a Type 3 eco-label, and we realized very early on in the day that this was key, and life cycle assessment was key, and indeed we're I suppose, quite lucky to actually have our own LCA director. And in fact, Connie would be, she's the chair of the American Centre for LCA. And that actually allowed us to identify those hotspots, as Laura talked about there earlier, and then to focus our attention on where we needed to reduce our embodied carbon. And I think eco-labels are fantastic. I think the idea of having something that is third-party verified as opposed to self-declarations, really what you need here is to have confidence that the label you're using, that it will provide confidence in the specifiers also. And sometimes it can be very unclear. And probably not just one label. And I think this is where the responsible product framework really comes in and does an excellent job in that you're getting credit for a wide range of different types of certifications, whether it's having a product stewardship program, whether it's having carbon neutrality, and I could talk a little bit about that, but we've actually gone away from that. We're focused more on science-based targets now, but indeed that is also recognized within the responsible framework, and on and on. So it gives a more holistic approach to assessing the company and the supplier that you're dealing with. And I think that is excellent because having one label or a tick-the-box exercise isn't good enough if you really want to address climate. And I think the EPD is the basis of that, and then you build on that with your environmental choice labels, your HPDs, your EPDs, et cetera, et cetera. And indeed, I think that's really, it's about having transparency and ensuring that we're doing what we're saying on the label.
Fantastic. So, I mean, we hear a lot about circularity. Do you see, I mean, I think product stewardship is certainly one way of dealing with circularity, taking back the product and so you can actually reuse it. Do you see, if you had a crystal ball, what do you see in the near future as the next big thing in this realm? Circularity, or, I know when I was reading Cradle to Cradle, it's talking about trying to divide things in the natural and the technological. I don't know if I've seen that much, really. I'm not sure if Interface does that or not. But.
Yeah, look, actually, when it comes to a circular economy, technology will never be the issue. It's really getting the people working together within that model to make it work. And we found that's probably the most difficult hill to climb in our sustainability journey, is actually developing the circular economy model. When I talk about product stewardship programs like our Take Back program, that's a building block for circular economy, but it goes beyond just recycling. I was on the tours yesterday and it was really reassuring to see so many refurbs. These were fantastic examples of circular economy models in action. You know, extending the life of a building, reusing materials, you know, not building at all to reduce your impact. These are great examples of a circular economy. And indeed, in Australia, we have one really neat example of maybe the future, where it's more of a radical collaboration. We have a program called ResiLoop, and that's in the resilient flooring industry, where all our competitors and ourselves have got together to develop a product stewardship program for the industry, to divert the waste from our industry, our flooring, from landfill, and to get that back into the economy in a value-added form. And that is up and running now. It's just been developed with a grant from the government. And I think this is important. Governments can help. They shouldn't step out of the way. They should support, and they should lead. And they should set the rules to ensure that we can all play the same game. And I think that's important.
I was just going to say, I think it's a really great lesson as well. I think when we talk about the next thing or the trends, you know, we expect some sort of technological breakthrough, but actually it's a lot simpler if we, you know, when we think about it. And your example there, Aidan, you know, I think Resine in New Zealand has done a terrific job in terms of that radical collaboration and that product stewardship as well. You know, they have a much bigger footprint than most other paint brands, but have been taking back everyone else's paint for a number of years now. So that radical collaboration is key. You know, something that we're seeing as well, I guess, you know, we look ahead to what's happening in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's a huge push around repair as well. I think that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, there is an amendment bill before Parliament at the moment as well, but really embracing those circular principles. You know, is your product designed for reuse or repair or disassembly?
Is that something you might include in your future eco-labels?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some criteria now, and I should probably say that we've been updating our standards so we can, I suppose, yield businesses the most amount of points under this new framework. It's a slow process because, you know, we publicly consult on every review or updated standard that we have for 60 days, and there are a lot of other certifications wanting to take part in the responsible product framework as well. So there's kind of a bit of a queue that we're on at the moment, but we're hoping to have all of our new scores by the end of the year. But yeah, absolutely, and you know, we've been doing quite a bit of work on repair and have put together, again, to government, a concept around, you know, a voluntary repair label, because there's actually a bunch of really cool businesses in New Zealand already doing this voluntarily. Yeah.
And some great not-profits doing repair cafes too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think another key sort of step going forward, certainly on the circular economy side as well, is that we're going to actually have to reimagine the products that we're making. We're actually going to have to rethink the materials. It's interesting to see timber up there. Think mycelium bricks, think hempcrete, think biochar in facades and what have you. And these are the products or the materials of the future. So it is a movable feast. And standards will be changing as well, and we'll need different certification processes. And we'll also need to develop new supply chains as well for that circular economy. And they'll have to be ethical, and they'll have to be, in the community spirit as well. And I think that's something we tend to miss. We've been very big on technology, and it's only in the last few years we've started to look at, our Modern Slavery Act, Reconciliation Action Plan, and then working with our communities to develop supply chains.
I'd say a benefit, maybe a challenge also, is that you actually have to really intimately know your supply chain, right? And you actually want to keep it because you've made that effort to understand them and make sure that they are who you want them to be, and you don't want to lose them, right?
Absolutely, and I think when we're actually looking at achieving carbon negativity, that working with bio-based materials in our products is a key to getting there, and we have success in doing that. But I think also if we're looking at reducing our carbon footprint, even to get there along the road, we've actually set science-based targets. So I've heard the comment earlier, 50%. We've determined that we have to reduce our Scope 3 emissions by 50% by 2030 to align with the Paris Agreement. Simple as that. So we have to work with our supply chain. We actually have to work with those guys that are aligned with our goals as well.
Fantastic. Laura, any insight or wisdom or things you've heard from the industry as you've slowly been, not slowly, but pretty quickly changing your eco-labels?
I think something that I've been really thrilled about is the majority of businesses who have been genuinely quite excited about us phasing in the modern slavery and social accountability criteria. Obviously, we don't have legislation in New Zealand, and so many businesses were really keen to sort of take a deeper look into that element. And I think a lot of them have gained a heap of business intelligence. And I think one of the things I would say, especially for businesses that have, they have parts of their products, made overseas, is working with those suppliers. You're right, Aidan, is just so important because it's an education game, and it's not as easy as cutting off someone that is not doing everything by the book. It's about working with them because there's a big learning curve going on at the moment. And I guess when we look at some countries as well, particularly developing countries, is there's a lot of workers who really ask to work longer hours because they want to get ahead in life and they want more money, more money for their families and things like that. So rather than just saying, hey guys, we're not going to use you anymore because your workers are working too long, it's sort of these are the reasons, what's the transition plan, those sorts of things. I think the embodied carbon criteria has probably caused the most angst so far with us. And that is because a lot of the businesses that we work with are, we work with a huge array, so very small to very large, and geographically spread out around the country. But some of the regional businesses have been concerned that they'll be disadvantaged with the embodied carbon because obviously there's increased transportation and things like that. So I guess, with anything, with sustainability, it's a complex beast and there are trade-offs, and obviously we really want to encourage regional economic development as well. So I guess that's just to say that's something that, we're certainly considering during our audit process and our certification process, and I think, the Green Building Council has also taken into consideration. So that's kind of been the two biggest pieces of feedback that we've got.
So it's certainly a lot of it's education, right? I mean, you mentioned to give us a call. We certainly speak a lot with people in the industry about trying to understand what is the responsible product. So I know that we've got a webinar. I think you're going to be working with us on the 19th of September for the responsible products category for Green Star buildings. So watch the space on that. By the way, we'll be covering this in a bit more detail. And then I think we've got another webinar in November to try and get a little bit more in the weeds on this stuff. So we understand we really all need to be educating the industry as to what this is and how to navigate this. So watch the space. So
it's also a handy FAQ on your apps as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, thank you. And you created it, Laura. Thank you very much. So any last words, either one of you?
Well, I think you made a point earlier there, but to get where we want to go to needs a lot of collaboration. It also needs sharing of information, and I think we've always been open to that. And I think for any business that's setting out and doesn't know where to go, first thing is understand where you're actually leaving from and to measure where you're at. And to work within your own industry and share experience as well, because I think that's how you learn. We're sort of preaching to the converted here today, but there are a lot of small companies out there that would feel very much overawed by this situation, and they shouldn't be.
It's good to get your baseline right.
Yes,
Before you even start
baseline is
anything,
so
just
important.
take your baseline, get the data, and then you
Exactly.
can start changing and evolving over
Absolutely.
time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, thank you both so much. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate your
you.
time. Thank you. Yeah, not too bad, yeah. Yep, yep.
Thanks, Brad, for facilitating that. I just want to say that, man, I love Aidan's socks, been staring at those ankles, probably for a little bit too long.
Whatever you're into, man. No judgment.
So Brad, well, first of all, I've got 4 quick takeaways, and I've got 2 questions for you, bro. But my quick takeaways are, from the panel sort of corridor that we had, if you're a product company, start your journey with EPDs, starting your journey in EPDs, begin with a lifecycle analysis as your journey into certification. So at Critical, we did the same. We started with an LCA, that then opened up the whole world of certifications. And EcoChoice then used that verification, the lifecycle analysis for the verification. So that was really helpful for us. Second takeaway is when it comes to scaling circularity, meaning achieve net zero and achieving zero waste and low carbon, the hardest part is not technology, but people. Hey, that's a really cool point. And we feel that as well in our industry. The hardest part is not technology, but people buying in. And I love what Laura said about the next biggest trend is radical collaboration. Finding values-aligned suppliers like Interface, Spacebar, there's a sustainable furniture company back there too, who does to do good work together and partner up. So those stalls, again, it's a really awesome opportunity to partner up. Consider new materials, like hempcrete, bio-based materials, and even recycled plastics. Any materials that are non-virgin based have a significant impact on carbon. So we did from our LCA, we deducted that for Critical clean stone with our recycled material, recycled plastics, the emissions reduction is about 1,000 times compared to, say, using engineered stone or laminate plywood.
Fantastic, yeah.
Now my question's for you, bro. 2 questions. Now, I don't know about your marriage, but my marriage is 6-star, Green Star certified.
6-star, all right. Yeah. A little bit more than sustainable, yeah.
Verified by EcoChoice.
Nice.
How many stars is your marriage, bro?
Well, I don't have one, but it would be 6, so.
I'm so sorry,
Awkward.
bro. I'm sorry. There's no shame in that.
No, I know,
There's no
not
shame
at
in that.
You want to ask another question?
You
Turned you down on that one, didn't I?
up for that one, bro. So, I'm so sorry, bro.
No, it's all right. No, it's okay, really.
I'm not married. What is one? I'm a sustainable supplier. We're a product company. What is more serious question is like, what is one way sustainable suppliers like us can work with NZGBC to maximize our impact? What do we do?
Well, I think what you've already done. I mean, trying to identify the fact that the first step is doing EPD or life cycle assessment, right? But you can come to us and talk to us about that. But yeah, and then basically looking at the responsible products framework and figure out what makes sense for your product to be most valuable to a Green Star project. Awesome. So looking at the different ways to get that verified that you have a really positive, sustainable product. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
We'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah.